there, I'm Jules. Nice to see you. The word of the day today is bidet. You know, they go on toilets and, yeah. If you know, you know, and you know how amazing it is. If you'd like to know why bidet is the word of the day, watch my next video and then read the description to find out. Hi babes! Today we're playing Seduce Me again for the 5th time. Seduce Me 2, I should say. The Demon War. So you know what? Fingers crossed that we're going to fight the Demon War today. I don't know what's going to play out. I think we're about to fight the Demon War because I just had my last night with Erik. And it was so romantic. Let's see, where... Okay. The Siege. We are starting the Demon War. Here we go. Oh, music change. The day of the siege had finally dawned. We had arrived at the Demon Lord's castle, and we were as ready as we could be. Many armies bearing different banners and colors washed over the grounds before the castle, ready to rush in and lay waste to the Demon Lord and the remainder of his forces. All of us shared a common enemy, and upon his demise would finally know some form of peace. Even during the roll call of the major generals, the air became full of determination and pride.
Mirth, Avarice, Nadia, Fiorna, Aradum.
Each name called became a mark on history. This was the war to bring freedom or destruction to the demon world. If the rebellion didn't win this fight, then this war would never end. If the rebellion won, then the world would become united in a hopefully peaceful rule. The hour before the battle was set to take place, my thoughts instantly ran back to our final meeting in Lilith Castle. Diana had pulled the leaders and us together, instructing us on how exactly to proceed.
Sarah, you will be joining Shadow and Sergeant in the front, taking care of the main army head-on. I expect that you will come out of it alive.
Yes, my lady.
Rabbit, Faye, you are in charge of range attacks and defense. We cannot allow any of those blasted imps getting to us from behind.
Yes, ma'am!
As Diana looked to me, I grew slightly fearful. I had to get into the Demon Lord's castle, but how exactly did Diana plan on getting me there?
You and your fiancé will take the side route straight to the castle.
Wait, huh?
We've organized our army to have our strongest on the front lines and against the tree line, giving us a side route for you to make your way straight to the castle.
If anything trickles into the side route, you'll be able to handle it. However, there is something I must ask of you.
Uh-oh. What is it?
If you are indeed attacked, you need to defend your fiancé the entire way there. Do not let him use his energy.
Are you out of your mind?
When you get to the castle, I will be fighting one-on-one with the Demon Lord. If something should happen to me, then I need you to take over. She is not ready to fight him, and you need to be at full strength to finish him off.
She's been taught well. Let her prove herself when the time comes.
I stared, listening and reaffirming the order. I couldn't lie, I was nervous. However, I was determined enough to see this through. I looked over at my fiancé with a confident smile. I got this. Don't worry. Despite the worried look in his eyes, he nodded and held my hand, trusting me in my decision to agree with Diana's command. Diana rolled her shoulders and looked at the map draped over the war table between us all. Her gaze pierced into the parchment as the aura around her body pulsated in anger.
I will fly ahead and meet the Demon Lord head-on. No matter what happens, I will not allow that monster to live.
The pure determination and anger in her voice practically sent a shiver down my spine. She was set on seeing this through to the end, and I was sure that she was willing to even die if it meant taking the Demon Lord with her. The remaining incubi and the wives were asked to stay behind the army and guard the main base, where Rabbit and Faye were stationed. They needed as many eyes as possible in the back of the battle, so the 4 couples were perfect to keep things in check. As they agreed, the meeting ended and the mental preparation had begun. The idea of the upcoming battle scared me, sending waves of fear and worry up and down my body in response to the thought.
So, my warrior princess, are you ready?
Ready to kill your own dad? I want to say yes, but I'm scared. Erik gave me a comforting smile and gently leaned down and kissed my cheek, wrapping his arms around me softly.
I promise. I will protect you from anything that comes our way.
I listened to him speak before nodding, taking in a deep breath. Everything would be okay. We'd be fine. I had to believe in myself and get us to the castle when the time was right. Like a beacon, our forces became the banner of hope and strength for the rebellion. At the sight of Diana, many soldiers bowed or stared in awe and inspiration. Maybe it was her presence, or maybe it was for what she stood for, but as Diana stood at the cliffside of the mountain, the air became full of energy and power. My fiancé, Rabbit, Faye, and I stood behind her as Diana stood on the ledge of the cliffside, addressing the rebellion for their final battle. Her voice echoed across the field, booming and reverberating through the air like thunder.
Milites! Et hoc liberati esturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris, sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem, nocte, lavabir mur, arcem, hostium sanguine!
I wonder if that's actually Latin, because that's kind of sick. What is she saying?
She said that she will help them gain their freedom, and she will stand with them as they fight this war.
Is that all?
Well, she also said that the castle will be bathed in blood, but I don't believe she means it literally.
I nodded as I stared at the back of Diana's head. Part of me felt a little intimidated and jealous of the power she had. She really could make armies bow to her and obey her every whim. At the same time, I knew that she was doing the right thing for this world.
Ele dio dominati sun nostri, nos destruet, eum mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos.
A pair of guards rushed forward, carrying a flailing imp demon who was caught in chains, and forcefully slammed him down in front of Diana. She glared down at him and gripped one of his horns, pulling him to his knees.
You should be thankful we didn't throw you into a stew like we did your partner.
With that whisper, Diana dragged her nails across the imp's neck, slicing open 5 large gashes in his throat and making him garble out a painful, bubbly cry. Ew. Diana, however, kept holding his head up, focusing on the blood that poured from him and guiding the energy that emanated from it towards the castle. With a flash, a large purple and red orb barrier that surrounded the castle shattered, fading into the air. The barrier that held the Demon Lord at bay was finally open, allowing us to charge in and end this once and for all. Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brightly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed into a set of demonic wings. I could only stare, jaw dropped, as Diana's body lifted off of the ground and began to fly over the legions, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
Jeez. At her final command, Diana's wings pulsated in the air, flapping gracefully as she swooped down and forward. She was charging and flying for the castle walls, saber bared and ready to spill blood. As the armies below began to bellow and march forward, Rabbit took hold of my shoulder and turned me away from the castle to face her.
Come, we must hurry.
Understanding the need for urgency, I nodded and rushed forward with the rest of the incubi toward the slope down the mountainside.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west.
Is our route clear?
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
I nodded, feeling the need to rush and nip at my heels, pushing me forward. My fiancé seemed to agree, gripping my hand and walking at my pace alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped, looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost.
You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. So, this is it.
Remember your surroundings and protect each other.
Be careful, all right? Make sure you stay safe.
Kick his dead body a couple times for me, all right? Right in the head.
We'll be right here rooting for you and watching your back, okay?
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Make sure you kick some serious ass. Show that old goat what he gets for messing with you.
We'll win this. We know we can.
I mean, he's your dad. You're just gonna kill your dad just like that?
You can do this. We'll see you soon, okay?
I smiled, despite the nerves running through my body. I held onto my fiancé's hand and gave it a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked into the tree line, took a breath, and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me to not lose sight of me. The journey was surprisingly fast going through the trees. The sound of the war crashed beside us outside of the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume, but I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. Before I could, however, I skidded to a stop, seeing imps appear from the distance and rush towards us. As my incubus came up behind me and spotted the imps, he prepared himself to attack, but I placed my hand on his arms, stopping him. I got this. I walked forward and formed my weapon, letting it shine brightly in the darkness of the forest around us, and temporarily blinding the imps ahead of us. My hands formed the katars I had trained with, feeling their weight in my hands as the blade glimmered a lavender glow of energy. I swung my hands a bit, recalling the reach and balance of the weapons in my hands as I prepared to attack. The imps, who were blinded by my light only for a moment, looked back at me and stared as they took note of the weapon I had possessed. With a battle cry, I rushed forward, taking advantage of their blank state. Gah! I arched my body to the side and jabbed forward, running my blade through the face of an imp before slicing through it and spinning around to slash through the imp beside him, opening 2 large gashes in his chest through his ribs and lungs. Ooh. The imps fell as the others became shell-shocked at the sight. It must have been a big surprise to see a human cut down 2 of their number, but I wasn't in the mood to let them recover. My body quickly turned in front of another imp as I swung my weapon once again, slicing open his throat. With a bubbly cry, he fell as well as I rushed forward again towards the castle, uncaring. The remaining imps began to quake and step back in fear, most likely never expecting to see a human decimate their companions. I wasn't so friendly and merciful, especially in this war, as I lunged forward again and skewered through another imp, hearing the steel of my weapon breaking through his body. Ew. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my carnage, followed as I continued forward, fighting through every imp that came in our way. I had lost count of how many crossed me, but I didn't care. All I cared about was getting to the castle. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there was a slew of dead bodies behind me. I stood at the tree line, panting and feeling waves of adrenaline and lack of energy run through my veins. I panted for air, slowly focusing on calming down as my energy quickly depleted from its adrenaline-filled high. The weapon in my hand quickly vanished, no longer able to maintain its form without my energy. That was all I could do before my energy was expended and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Whoa! Princess, are you okay?
Huh? I looked up to see Erik staring down at me with a deeply concerned gaze. We were safe for the moment, so I merely smiled up at him with a nod. I'm fine. I promise to protect you, like you protect me. Erik let out a small laugh, kissing my forehead and hugging me to him.
You spoil me so much, my love.
I hugged him back, feeling relief that we had finally arrived at the castle and were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, Erik lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
Will you be all right?
I guess. I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle gates and felt a rush of determination run through me. Let's go finish this. With that, Erik and I rushed forward into the castle. The final battle had begun. Erik and I rushed into the castle and into the main hall, where we could hear Diana and the Demon Lord clashing swords.
I will tear you to shreds!
As we finally entered the space where the battle was happening, we stopped at the doorway, spotting Diana slamming her saber over and over onto the Demon Lord's sword, which was held over his head like a shield. From the look of it, the Demon Lord was severely wounded and was trying to hold out against Diana's barrage of blows. Diana wasn't looking too well herself, but she seemed to have the upper hand. What was scary was that Diana's face was completely smeared with blood, intensifying the frightening look of rage and anger in her eyes. Every swing was reckless, powerfully thrown to eventually hack into the Demon Lord. To her displeasure, the Demon Lord was able to block each time. Erik and I slowly stepped in, watching as Diana continued to beat steel to steel in an angry rage, trying to find an opening and becoming more enraged with each block the Demon Lord pulled. Slowly, his body began to glow, pulsing with red energy.
Enough!
With a blast of red lightning, Diana was sent flying back, slamming against a pillar and falling to the ground with a thud.
Ah!
Diana! The Demon Lord seemed to ignore my shout as he stood and began to walk over towards Diana's fallen body. Diana tried to press up onto her hands, stumbling and buckling a bit, before she glared up at the Demon Lord while he approached.
I should have waited until you came back, so I could have killed all of you in one fell swoop.
Diana's glare intensified as large black and purple flames engulfed her body from the rage that ignited within her.
You bastard!
Pouncing off the ground, Diana formed a new saber in her hand and flew at the Demon Lord, swinging it to slice his throat open. However, the Demon Lord parried, locking steel once more with her and leaning in with a hard glare of his own.
How does it feel to be the only one left alive in your family? Not even your unborn sister survived!
Diana snarled as she slammed her feet into the Demon Lord's chest, forcing him back and causing her to catch herself on her wings, remaining in the air. The voice that erupted from Diana's mouth sent shivers down my spine.
You don't even deserve the mercy of death!
Erik instinctively placed an arm in front of me, staying put and watching intently. Both of us were sure that Diana possibly had this, but we didn't want to get in the way of her rage if she was full out going berserk. The Demon Lord let out a laugh before pointing his hand at Diana, summoning a large bolt of red lightning to shoot out and slam into Diana. Luckily, Diana had placed her sword between them and blocked the lightning from hitting her skin. Still, she was slammed back into the pillar she hit before and held there against a stream of heavy red lightning.
You're losing your power, succubus! Just like your weak parents!
With a tearful scream, Diana began to push back, shaking and gritting her teeth. The wounds on her body began to bleed profusely, but she eventually sent a wave of purple-like, flame-like energy into her sword, and letting it climb up the lightning bolt into the Demon Lord's hand. The Demon Lord quickly pulled his hand away, revealing a sizzling and burning aura around his palm and fingers. Diana, weakened, fell to her knees, exhausted but not out yet. Her eyes still bore into her enemy, not ready to give up. Ooh. I felt myself glare hard at the Demon Lord. He was a monster that needed to be stopped. Erik, feeling my anger, stepped forward and began to summon his ethereal tendrils behind his back and around his form.
Guess it's time to step in.
I watched as Erik rushed forward and planted his feet beside Diana, reeling his hands back and punching them forward. As he did, a crown of tendrils shot up from the ground around his body and flew at the Demon Lord like a spray of arrows. The Demon Lord glared and sliced each attack out of the way, panting from exhaustion, but not ready to surrender. As he sliced through the last one, he sneered at his second son, gritting his teeth.
You!
Erik smirked, licking his lips slightly.
Did you miss me, father?
As he finished his sentence, Erik formed another round of spikes behind him and shot them towards his father, glaring as he blocked and knocked each one away again with his sword. The Demon Lord let out a dark chuckle.
Like I would miss little insect traitors like you.
The Demon Lord let out a howl before slamming his giant sword into the floor, causing the ground to quake and a large crack to cut through the marble and charge at Erik's position. Erik jumped into the air and landed beside the broken earth, sending out another volley of spikes. Luckily, one rammed into the Demon Lord's shoulder, causing him to shout in pain.
Losing your touch, aren't you?
The Demon Lord snarled before ripping the spike out of his body, letting the wound bleed openly before rushing at his son with his sword held high. However, Diana swooped in and slammed her saber into the path of his sword, forming a deadlock.
I'm not finished with you!
Diana and the Demon Lord pushed against each other, eventually jumping away from each other in aggravation. As Diana landed beside Erik, he stepped in and pointed his hands to the ground, where his tendrils burrowed through the marble and jutted out like a spike trap. The Demon Lord was quick to react, rushing back before the spikes impaled him from below, and glared. This match had become an unfair fight for him, but in our case, it was needed to finish him off at last.
Just as cocky as your mother! No wonder she was my least favorite.
Aww. Erik suddenly grew a dark face, the tendrils on his body glowing in a red, misty aura. Something snapped in Erik's emotions, and the Demon Lord triggered it.
Don't worry. I'll send you to a place where you'll never have to see her again.
Erik and the Demon Lord then simultaneously rushed towards each other, with the Demon Lord raising his sword high and Erik moving his tendrils to wrap around his blade. Erik and the Demon Lord went into a deadlock with the Demon Lord, trying to cut through the hold his tendrils had on his sword. Erik, however, formed more free tendrils and shot them up at the Demon Lord from below, causing his father to release his sword and jump back, now unarmed. Erik smirked as his tendrils snapped the sword in half with insane ease and tossed the two halves to the side to be forgotten. I watched in anxiousness, hoping this battle would end soon. It was 2 against 1. Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I, however, kept my distance to make sure he wouldn't attack me instead. I had no energy to fight. Taking in what Erik had done to his weapon, the Demon Lord snarled.
I can beat you even without my sword. Remember who raised you, boy.
Erik let out a large bark of a laugh as his tendrils sharpened into spikes once again.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. My mother raised me. You were too busy doting on your favorite son to care about me or the others.
The Demon Lord growled, his fists becoming engulfed in red bolts of lightning.
I created you! You owe your very existence to me.
I owe you nothing!
The Demon Lord only laughed before suddenly gasping from pain. I had barely seen what had happened, but as I stared at the Demon Lord, I gasped at the sight. Protruding from the Demon Lord's chest were a spray of red spikes, dripping with his blood. I could barely keep staring as he turned and looked to us in shock. I looked over at Erik to see him pointing at the wall behind the Demon Lord, where a collection of spikes jutted through a black void into the Demon Lord's back, effectively skewering him.
You never paid attention. You were blinded by pride, and that will be your downfall.
No! He's mine!
Erik quickly pulled back his tendrils from his father's body, causing the Demon Lord to fall forward from the pain and momentum. Diana, however, swooped at the Demon Lord and rammed her saber into his chest, a garbled gasp escaping his throat. Without hesitating, Diana pulled her sword out and stabbed him once again, driving her blade all the way through him to the hilt and snarling into his face.
Those were for my parents.
A third stab directly through the heart.
For my sister!
Diana finally pulled her sword out and rammed the pommel into the side of his head, pushing him down to the ground in a lifeless thud. He was dead by now, eyes glazed over in death's cold, breathless embrace. However, Diana didn't care. Diana quickly straddled his waist, bringing up her saber and using her magic to shorten to a dagger in her hands above her head.
And for every life you took from this world!
Maddened, Diana began to violently slam and pepper stabs into the Demon Lord's chest. Erik rushed over and wrapped his arm around me, covering me from the sight, but he was unable to block the sound of Diana's sob-filled screams with each stab. I became a bit frightened at Diana and how she was releasing her anger. However, it was entirely justified. He had taken everything from her and had caused worldwide chaos. It was only natural to demand revenge even after death. This was her last stand with him, and she had dominated his very corpse with her blade, uncaring of the lost spirit no longer within it. It went on far too long, to the point where Erik had to let me go and walked forward, pulling Diana off of him. She began to flail, dropping her knife and letting it fade as it hit the ground into nothing.
No! Let go!
Diana!
Erik pulled Diana to her feet and gripped her shoulders, shaking her and glaring into her eyes.
Enough!
Diana's eyes were bloodshot, desperate to keep striking the dead body, but filled with emotion and broken inhibition. As she finally took in Erik's words, she shut her eyes and dropped to her knees, releasing a wave of sobs and cries. I walked over to Erik's side, pitying Diana. She must have seen so much death. This was her solace and chance to let go. To know her family was gone because of him wrenched pain into my heart, but I knew that it was finally over. They were avenged, and so were the many people who had died under his hand. The Demon Lord was dead at last. I felt a weight lift off of my heart and spirit, proving to me that the curse was broken and that the chain that bound me to the abyssal plains was gone. I could go home. I hugged Erik's arm to me, finally letting out the sigh I was holding in relief to the situation. Erik smiled and kissed my head.
It's over now.
Yeah, we can go home now. A wave of joy rushed through my body, happy to know that I was free to go home. I began to become overjoyed with the idea of returning, walking across the aisle and marrying Erik before returning to my normal life. Life in the demon world was an adventure, but it was time to finish this and leave. I smiled at Erik before kneeling down and placing a hand on Diana's shoulder as she cried, causing her to look up at me. I could only smile at her, try to relieve some of the heartache and burden she was releasing. It's over, Diana. We won. A small breath of silence ran through the air before Diana wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded, still shaky from the experience.
It's over.
I nodded and gently helped Diana stand before taking Erik's hand and walking towards the entrance of the hall. Diana, however, turned back to look at the Demon Lord's body, stopping us in our tracks.
Was this all worth it? I lost my family because of him. There was so much bloodshed.
Diana tightened a fist at her side, gritting her teeth and shutting her eyes.
I didn't get to say goodbye to my family. My sister.
I felt another wave of empathy run through my body at her words. She wasn't really alone, though. She had Sado. He was truly everything she had left in the world, and he was more than willing to walk through it with her. It was all right, so I reached out to take her shoulder. Diana looked over, seeing the comfort in my eyes despite her broken gaze. Before I could speak, however, a familiar purple light glowed from the Demon Lord's body, catching our eyes and causing us all to look over in shock. What was happening? What the... Before our eyes, a faint purple orb slowly appeared and bobbed up and down in the air, looking to us. The orb that had haunted me and was expelled from me floated over the dead body of the Demon Lord, as if it had been there the entire time. Oh my god, is that Diana's little sister? You. The orb moved in a circle about the Demon Lord's body, letting the faint trace trail behind it temporarily draw a circle in the air. As it returned to its spot, it released a pulse of light. The light slowly drifted towards Diana, impacting her chest and making her glow a bit before the light faded away. Confused, Diana stared at the spirit, trying to figure out what it had done to her. Was it an attack? Slowly, Diana became wide-eyed at it in familiarity. With a shaky hand, Diana reached out towards the orb, lost emotion in her eyes as she kept her sights on the spirit.
Oh, Arabelle.
I stared at Diana in shock. It had a name? How did Diana know the spirit at all? It was like she was grasping at straws. How could Diana have known who it was? The orb floated forward, stopping in front of the Demon Lord's corpse as Diana took a step towards it.
Hi, Azair.
I was wrong. Diana hit the nail on the head with its name and seemed to be acquainted with it. Diana took a couple more steps forward before dropping to her knees in the middle of the hall. I watched as tears began to stream down her face and her body began to quake. The orb slowly floated over to Diana and hovered just within arm's reach of her. Diana's hands shakily lifted up past her chest and over her mouth.
Oh, Arabelle.
It's okay. It's okay, big sister.
Thought so. Big sister? Diana suddenly let out a tearful gasp before reaching forward and taking the orb into her arms, somehow pulling the orb into a tight embrace. The orb seemed to shimmer in the hug it was in, but it didn't seem to react in any other way. Diana, however, became a weeping mess, crying and shaking while holding Arabelle close.
Arabelle! Arabelle!
I couldn't believe it. The spirit was Arabelle, Diana's sister? What kind of coincidence was that? How did Diana not know herself? How did Orbel not tell me? It obviously knew Diana just from how they were embracing. Still, the sight of Diana in mournful tears gripped to my heart. Diana lost her sister and suddenly was able to speak to her once more, even after Orbel's death. It was as if fate wanted to apologize for taking her family away. I almost became a crying mess myself. It was a very tearful reunion after a dramatic battle. I didn't know how to feel in the situation we were in. Diana didn't seem to care as she continued to cry and hold Orbel. Erik wrapped an arm around me, comforting me as I wiped my eyes and tried to avoid weeping. Diana, however, didn't seem to care about the tears running down her face.
This is the first time I've heard you cry, sister.
I'm sorry. I tried to save you. But
It's okay. The Demon Lord did this to me.
It suddenly made sense. Orbel was an unborn baby, so it wouldn't have known its name. The Demon Lord was the one who killed her, so the puzzle pieces were connecting perfectly. Orbel then phased out of Diana's hands, making the demoness gasp and look up to the orb. Orbel, however, floated in place in front of Diana as she continued to speak.
The Demon Lord made me find the human.
What? Orbel was working for the Demon Lord? She helped the imps bring me to the demon world?
Orbel, you were the human all along? Why not just tell me? Why?
He made me. But now I have nowhere to go.
Orbel.
Something in the air didn't seem right. Something about Orbel became off, and I couldn't place my finger on it. The more I stared, the more concerned I became, and the heavier the nervousness in my gut grew.
Isaiah, I love you so much. But...
The air seemed to freeze, and the room became still as Orbel floated back towards the body of the Demon Lord. No! As Orbel stopped, she began to glow a dark red and purple color.
I can't forgive you.
Forgive her for what? All at once, the orb flashed and vanished into thin air, only a misty gas present in the aftermath.
Orbel!
We looked around, trying to pin down where she had gone. As the Demon Lord's hand suddenly lifted up and slammed into the ground, we shot our heads back at his corpse, seeing it begin to animate. Oh my god. I can't handle this drama. The Demon Lord slammed his other hand to the ground and began to push himself up, curling his shoulders over and using whatever strength he had in getting onto his knees and eventually his feet. What? Ew. The Demon Lord's body stood up and steadied itself on the ground on its 2 feet, heavy and void of life. What was happening? How could this be? As the Demon Lord's head lifted to look up at Diana, I gasped. His eyes were glossed over in a dark purple, almost black color. Blood continued to pour from the wounds of the body, but the body continued to move as if it had a small breath of life. His mouth dropped and began to mold itself into forming words, dead and echoey with Orbel's voice seeping through.
You let him kill me. You let him kill mother and father.
Orbel!
You let the human live and let us die. I can never forgive you.
The voice of the Demon Lord and Orbel seemed to fuse in a dissonant harmony as the body slowly began to march towards the unmoving Diana. My mind screamed for her to move and run, but Diana didn't seem to be immobile at the oncoming danger. She didn't seem to be immobile? She didn't seem to be mobile. Diana, move! She remained in place, shocked and frozen at what her sister had said and done. I could barely make out her hair and body, shuddering in natural fear, but she wouldn't move at all. Grab Diana! There was no way I was going to let Orbel hurt her, sister or not. I rushed forward and grabbed Diana by the horns, pulling her back as fast as I could. Diana gripped onto my hands, digging her nails into my skin, but I didn't care. I needed to bring her away from the incoming enemy. As I dragged her back, Orbel watched, unamused by my intrusion. I could only glare back, despite Diana flailing in my hands. She wouldn't take her away. I wouldn't let her. I finally released Diana's horns and stepped forward, placing myself between the 2 sisters. I won't let you hurt her. Orbel loomed forward towards us, filling me with dread. The stench of the Demon Lord's corpse became unbearable, despite not being dead long. I still had no energy to fight, the realization making me step back from the undead Demon Lord.
You hurt me.
Hurt me.
Now I'll hurt you.
Orbel picked up the Demon Lord's broken blade parts and slammed them together, fusing them back into one sword with her energy. How was that possible? She was a spirit. Orbel then started to charge at us, raising the sword barely over Erik's and my head. I prepared to defend myself. I became ready for the attack. But my vision became blocked by the back of Erik's head. What? Are you kidding me? Erik! Sticking out of Erik's back was the Demon Lord's blade. It was run through his chest towards me, barely inches away from my own chest. Erik, impaled, twitched as he stared down at the sword's blade. Erik! My heart began to cry and scream. This couldn't have been happening. No! Orbel quickly pulled the blade back out and sheathed it back into Erik's body, as if she wanted to be sure that she had killed him. I barely heard his last breath of life. Oh my god! No! I became so absorbed in the sound of my scream that I couldn't register Orbel pull out the blade and stepping around Erik, running it through my neck. Oh my god. Are you kidding me? End. You hurt me, now I'll hurt you. Why do I get these bad endings in these visual novels? I try my best. Erik. I can't believe it just ended like that. Oh my god. What the hell? Oh my god. What a horrible ending. At least give me a chance. I want to see if there's like ending lists or something. Ugh. Oh my god. Oh. I don't have any bloopers. How do I get out of this? Oh. I am so upset right now. I literally tried my best to not upset this little spirit. I tried my best. I did not purposefully hurt it ever. And it says, you hurt me, now I hurt you. Like, what? I always get these endings in these otomes, and it is killing me. No, okay. Okay. Destiny fails us. I got a good ending. Barely, but I did. Oh my god. I'm so upset right now. I love Erik. I'm so upset. Oh my god. Okay, well, there's nothing else to do because Erik's dead and so am I. So that's cool. That's fine. It's fine. I think there's more that I can play. The episodic thing, maybe it's not. Maybe Erik's still alive. You know what? You know what? Hold on. Okay. So I looked it up. I can't find the actual ending, but there's points. There's a point system. There's 8 points that I could have in Erik's route. And there's two bad endings and 1 good ending. I got the medium bad ending. There's if I can't live, you can't either, where you have less than 5 points. You hurt me, now I'll hurt you is what I got, and that's less than 7 points. I guess I had less than 7 points, but more than 5 points. Hopelessly devoted to you means greater than or equal to 7. So 7 or 8. So I must have had 6 points. So I did one thing wrong, and I get the shite ending. One thing. So I'm gonna base this. Here's another ending guide. So grab Diana by the horns. I did that. I saved her. Then I'm supposed to follow her, apparently. And then I say, it was good to see you again, though. And then it just says no. I don't know what that ending is. This is the bad ending. Awesome. Heck yeah. Thanks for playing. I had fun, and I hope you did too. My heart's just broken a little bit, but that's okay. Love you, Erik. I will see you later.